Dark ocean waves crash against the shore. The screen fades in on a man's face we thought we'd never see again. Dexter Morgan. A whisper echoes, born in blood, guided by the code. Destined for darkness. The image flickers, then shatters. Narration takes over. What if the story didn't end with a son pulling the trigger? What if Dexter's death was never the end, but the beginning? This is the ending fans deserved. A resurrection, a reckoning, and a final surprise. Motherf *cker. Asterisk Dexter. Morgan. The name alone brings back memories of one of television's most complex anti-heroes. For years we watched a man who looked like a normal forensic expert by day, but lived as a careful predator by night. Guided by a strict code taught by his adoptive father Harry, Dexter hunted killers who had escaped the law. He was a monster. Yes, but a monster aimed at other monsters. When Showtime ended the original series, back in 2013, fans felt cheated. Dexter's story didn't close with justice or even tragedy. Instead, he vanished into a storm and reappeared as a lumberjack, living in exile. No punishment, no redemption, just nothing. It felt like the writers had abandoned the very heartbeat of the story. Viewers waited for years, hoping for closure. And then came Dexter, new blood. At first, hope was alive again. We saw Dexter living under a new identity, trying to bury his dark passenger and blend into a quiet town. A darkness never stays buried for long. His son Harrison returned, full of questions, rage, and his own shadows. For the first time, Dexter was forced to face the mirror of his own blood. But then, the ending, Harrison kills his father. Just like that, the man who had escaped for so long dies at the hands of his own son. For some, it was poetic. For many, it was bitter. The problem wasn't just that Dexter died, it was how it felt rushed, unearned, and disconnected from the depth of the story built over a decade. Harrison was left to wander, confused and half-formed. As a character, Deb was long gone, reduced to a ghostly voice in Dexter's head. And Angel Batista, who could have been the key to finally catching Dexter, was teased but never used. The revival gave us a spark but ended in ashes. Fans weren't angry that Dexter met his fate, they were angry that the story didn't honor the weight of his journey. After years of careful character building, moral questions, and haunting choices, Dexter's end felt more like a writer's shortcut than a destiny fulfilled. Imagine it differently. Imagine an ending where the world of Dexter finally collides Harrison, Batista, Deb's memory, and Dexter himself in one last game of survival. Imagine a finale where justice, love, and blood all demand their price. This is where resurrection begins. This is where we craft the ending that fans deserved. Asterisk picture this. The snowy forest in Iron Lake. Harrison stands over his father, the rifle shaking in his hands. Dexter looks at him, calm yet broken, almost welcoming the shot. A moment of silence fills the air. In the show, Harrison pulls the trigger, and that's where Dexter's story ends. But what if it didn't? What if, at the very last second, Harrison's finger hesitates? His father's words echo in his mind. You have to channel it. Control it, use it. The boy isn't just looking at a killer. He's looking at the man who raised him, the man whose darkness is also his own. The shot never comes. Instead, the rifle lowers. Harrison can't do it. He can't end Dexter, not yet, and here begins the resurrection. Dexter understands immediately. This is not mercy, it's a sentence. Harrison has spared him, but in doing so, he's forced Dexter into a new prison. He must live. He must carry the weight of every death, every lie, every ghost that haunts him. In this version, Dexter doesn't vanish in one gunshot. He's pulled back into the world he thought he could escape, a world that will never stop hunting him. But how does he survive? Simple, Dexter has faked his death before. This time, the cover-up becomes his salvation. Harrison helps stage the scene, blood on the snow, a false trail that convinces the outside world that Dexter Morgan is finally gone. But in reality, he disappears into the shadows once again. This time, not as Jim Lindsay, the quiet shop worker, but as something new and older, more cautious predator, stripped of his mask, carrying the knowledge that his son is still out there. Watching the resurrection doesn't mean Dexter gets to live free. Quite the opposite. His life now becomes a constant tug-of-war. Every step forward is haunted by Deb's voice in his head, mocking, warning, begging him to stop. Every time he looks at a blade, he sees Harrison's eyes reminding him that one day the boy may come for him again. Survival isn't peace. It's torment. Meanwhile, outside Dexter's small circle of lies, the world begins to move against him. Angel Batista, now armed with fresh evidence that Dexter is alive, refuses to let go. He knows the Bay Harbor butcher never truly disappeared. He feels it in his bones. To Batista, Dexter isn't just unfinished business, he's the embodiment of justice denied. The hunt begins, and this time it's personal, but perhaps the most dangerous enemy of all is not Batista, nor the FBI, nor even Harrison. It's Dexter himself. Because the dark passenger does not forgive silence. It gnaws, it whispers, it pushes. He may try to bury it with isolation, with the illusion of control, but sooner or later, another killer will surface. Another monster will slip through the cracks. And Dexter the predator, who cannot change, will feel that hunger again. The resurrection is not just about Dexter cheating death. It's about forcing him to live in a world where every choice has a consequence, where every shadow hides a threat, and every sunrise feels like a countdown. Harrison, Batista, and even Deb's ghost all orbit around him, pulling him toward a final reckoning he cannot avoid. In this rewritten tale, Dexter is not granted freedom. He is cursed with survival. He becomes a man caught between two lives, the father who wants to guide his son and the killer who cannot stop his bloodlust. And with every passing day, the net grows tighter. Harrison begins to understand his father's code in ways he never expected. Batista closes in with relentless determination, and Dexter himself walks the thin line between control and chaos. Resurrection does not mean redemption, it means reckoning. It means living long enough to see the ghosts of your past surround you, drag you down, and demand payment in full. For Dexter Morgan, survival isn't victory. It's the beginning of the end. Survival is never simple when you're Dexter Morgan. He has faked deaths, erased identities, and slipped through cracks the law never even knew existed. But resurrection doesn't come without consequences. The moment he draws breath after that staged death in Iron Lake, the balance of his world begins to tilt. Every path forward feels narrower, every shadow heavier. He knows the hunt is on, and he knows exactly who will be leading it. Angel Batista has carried the Bay Harbor butcher case like a scar. To him, it was never just another investigation. It was personal betrayal. Dexter wasn't just a killer. He was a colleague, a friend, someone Batista trusted. And when the truth began to crawl into the light, Dexter vanished. Now, whispers of his survival ignite Batista's obsession. He becomes the embodiment of justice, relentless, methodical, unyielding. If Dexter is a predator, Batista is the hunter who refuses to quit, even if it costs him everything. But while Batista sharpens the blade of justice, another battle brews inside Harrison. He is torn between two destinies, the life of a normal teenager who longs for freedom and the pull of a blood-soaked inheritance. His father spared him the burden of ignorance, teaching him about the code, the rules, the twisted morality of killing only killers. Yet Harrison feels the weight differently. For him, the code isn't a shield, it's a curse. Every time he closes his eyes, he wonders if the same darkness runs through his veins. This tension creates the core of Dexter's survival. His son is both his greatest hope and his greatest threat. In moments of silence, Dexter dreams of Harrison, escaping, living without the pull of death. But in his darker thoughts, he fears the truth, that Harrison might not only follow in his footsteps, but surpass him. The son could become the new predator, sharper, faster, unbound by the rules that once anchored Dexter. Here lies the paradox. Justice doesn't just come from outside, it grows from within. Harrison becomes a mirror Dexter cannot ignore. Every time Dexter stalks a new killer, every time the knife itches to cut, he sees Harrison's reflection staring back. Survival demands secrecy, but justice demands truth. The collision between the two is inevitable. Meanwhile, the ghosts grow louder. Deb, the sister he loved yet destroyed, becomes more than a voice in his head. She becomes the conscience he cannot silence. In the darkest hours, she asks the questions no one else can. How long can you keep running, Dex? How many lies before Harrison becomes you? How many badas before Batista finds your face in the mirror? Her presence makes survival feel less like life and more like punishment, and punishment is what Batista is chasing. Piece by piece, he rebuilds the trail. Old blood samples, cold case files, whispers from Iron Lake, he stitches the fragments into a tapestry of truth. While Harrison wrestles with inheritance, Batista sharpens his net. Ready to close it around Dexter with finality, the stage is set for a triangle of fate. On one side, Dexter, clawing for survival, desperate to hold on to his son while hiding from the law. On another, Harrison, balancing between becoming his father or breaking free. And looming above them, Batista, the living symbol of justice, whose pursuit will not end until the butcher's mask is ripped away. Justice versus survival isn't just a story of man versus law. It's father versus son, legacy versus freedom, darkness versus light. Dexter's resurrection has set the board. For the endgame, no longer is he a ghost in exile. He is the hunted. He is the teacher watching a student choose a path. And he is the killer whose code, once a guiding star, now feels like a noose tightening around his neck. The question is no longer whether Dexter can survive. It's whether survival itself is worth it. Because every step forward drags him closer to the reckoning he cannot escape. And when justice finally meets him face to face, whether through Harrison's hand or Batista's badge, the world will discover the truth. Survival is not victory. It is only the delay of judgment. Asterisk, the world of Dexter was never built for happy endings. It was built on blood, secrets, and choices that cut deeper than any knife. If survival is Dexter's curse, then the perfect ending isn't about letting him live forever. It's about forcing him to face the reckoning he has outrun for years. Fans didn't need him to escape again. They needed a conclusion that honored every ghost, every lie, every ounce of blood spilled in the name of the code. And so, the stage is set. The snow of Iron Lake gives way to fire. Batista closes in armed. With evidence fueled by betrayal, Harrison teeters between following the code or shattering it. Deb's voice hammers in Dexter's skull, demanding that he finally take responsibility. No more running, no more hiding. This is where survival meets justice and where legacy is decided. The perfect ending can take two paths, both inevitable, both devastating, both worthy of the character. Option 1, the poetic ending. Dexter, cornered at last, realizes the truth. He is not fighting to save himself. He is fighting to save Harrison from becoming him. Every action, every lesson, every bloody night has led his son to this cliff edge. And so, in a moment of clarity, Dexter chooses to end the cycle. Not by Batista's hand, not by Harrison's rage, but by his own decision. He surrenders not to the police, but to fate. He confesses everything to Batista, exposing the Bay Harbor butcher with his own voice. He lays bare the truth, stripping away every mask. In this act, he doesn't just seal his own death sentence. He protects Harrison. He makes sure his son will never carry his sins. The execution is quiet, deliberate. The monster chooses his own cage, and in that choice he becomes something more than a killer. He becomes a father who finally gives his son the one gift he never had: freedom from the darkness. For fans, this ending delivers justice, closure, and sacrifice. A man who lived by the knife dies not as prey, but as someone who finally controlled his own fate. Option 2. The tragic ending, but perhaps fans craved something sharper, something crueler, an ending that completes the cycle of blood. In this version, Harrison does pull the trigger, not in panic, not in rebellion, but in full understanding of the code. The son accepts his inheritance, carrying the dark passenger with clarity. He kills his father not out of hate, but out of necessity. The ultimate passing of the torch. Dexter looks at Harrison in those final moments and sees himself, young and trembling, standing in his own mother's blood. Only now he is the one lying in the snow, watching his legacy live on. His final breath is not despair, it's recognition. The boy has chosen. This ending gives fans the pain and poetry of tragedy. It ties back to the show's roots, cycles of violence, bloodlines poisoned by darkness, and the question of whether evil is born or made. Dexter dies by his son's hand, but unlike the revival's rushed conclusion, this death is earned. It is the climax of years of storytelling, heavy with meaning, drenched in inevitability. Why this works: both paths deliver what the original failed to: resolution. The original revival killed Dexter abruptly, leaving Harrison hollow and Batista sidelined, but the perfect ending demands weight. It demands every character matter: Batista as justice, Harrison as legacy, Deb as conscience, Dexter as the man who cannot escape himself. The resurrection doesn't erase death, it transforms it. Instead of a hollow twist, it becomes a finale that resonates. Fans get closure, either through Dexter's sacrifice to protect Harrison or through Harrison's acceptance of the code in his father's blood. Either way, the story ends not with a shrug, but with a roar. And in the final moment, after the screen fades to black, there is only silence. Then a shadow steps from the darkness. A familiar voice cuts through, sharp and unforgettable. "Surprise, Motherfcker." Asterisk the line, whether spoken by Dokes in a hallucination, a flashback, or even as Harrison's mocking echo, seals the story. A wink to the past, a ghostly reminder that no matter how many lives Dexter touched, no matter how many lies he told, his legend will never die quietly. This is the ending fans deserved. Not a lumberjack, not a rushed bullet in the snow, but a reckoning that ties together justice, survival, and legacy. A finale where every choice matters, every ghost returns, and every fan walks away haunted, satisfied, and whispering the same line: "Surprise, Motherfcker."